Welcome to Galactic Nova Stories, where cosmic emotions come to life. Your journey begins now. The biosuit sparked and hissed as Marcus Kane lifted its damaged chest panel, revealing a maze of organic circuitry that pulsed with dying light. He'd repaired hundreds of these alien life support systems during his 3 years at New Horizon Station, but something about this one felt different. Wrong. "Please be careful," whispered the suit's owner, a young Vellani girl who couldn't have been more than 16 standard years. Her pale blue skin held an unhealthy grey tinge, and her large violet eyes darted nervously between Marcus and the corridor beyond his workshop. "I need it working perfectly." Marcus nodded without looking up. The Vellani were a fragile species, requiring biosuits for most environments outside their homeworld's carefully controlled atmosphere. This girl, Kira, she'd said her name was, seemed more fragile than most. She'd stumbled into his shop an hour ago, barely conscious. The biosuits, warning lights flashing critical alerts. "What happened to it?" Marcus asked, probing deeper into the suit's bio-neural network. His human fingers, though lacking the Vellani's natural sensitivity to bioelectric fields, had learned to read the subtle patterns that indicated system health. I fell," Kira said quickly, too quickly. "From a maintenance platform, the impact damaged something inside." Marcus frowned at his readings. The biosuit's medical scanners showed massive internal trauma, not from a recent fall, but chronic, progressive damage that had been building for months, maybe years. The suit had been working overtime just to keep its wearer alive, burning through its organic components at an unsustainable rate. "Kira," he said gently, "this damage isn't from any fall. Your biosuit's been compensating for some serious medical issues. You should be in a hospital, not walking around a frontier station." The girl's eyes widened with something that looked like panic. No hospitals, no medical scans, just fix the suit, please. I can pay double your usual rate." That desperation in her voice triggered something in Marcus's protective instincts, the same stubbornness that had driven him to become the best biotech specialist in 3 sectors, despite being just human. Most aliens considered humans mechanically, gifted but emotionally simplistic. They were wrong on both counts. "Let me run a full diagnostic first," Marcus said, initializing the testing sequence. "I need to understand exactly what's been damaged before I can—" The biosuit convulsed violently, its organic components writhing like dying snakes. Kira screamed as the suit's emergency systems triggered, flooding her system with stabilizing drugs that barely kept her conscious. Warning lights bathed the workshop in pulsing red as the suit's synthetic voice announced in perfect Galactic. "Standard, critical system failure, life support compromised, estimated time to total organ shutdown 2 hours 47 minutes. Marcus stared at his readings in horror. The biosuit hadn't just been damaged, it had been literally holding Kira together, acting as external organs for systems that had failed inside her body. Without it, she would die within hours. "What aren't you telling me?" Marcus demanded, his voice sharp with urgency. Kira's facade crumbled. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "I'm not supposed to exist anymore. According to my people's laws, I should have been renewed months ago. The biosuit was hiding my condition, making me appear healthy, but now—" Renewed. Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's recycled air. "When we become too damaged, too old, too much of a burden," Kira explained, her voice barely audible over the suit's alarms, "we undergo renewal, a peaceful transition to join the cosmic flow. But I wasn't ready. I ran." Marcus looked at this girl, this child by human standards, who had been sentenced to death by her own people for the crime of being sick. Something deep in his chest ignited, the same fierce determination that had driven humans to spread across the galaxy, despite being told they were too weak, too primitive, too stubborn to survive among the stars. Every great bond starts with a single moment of courage. Galactic Nova Stories is just beginning, and your support matters. If you love emotional sci-fi tales, forbidden connections, and stories that stay with you, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us bring more stories, from the stars to you. "Well," Marcus said, rolling up his sleeves and pulling his emergency repair kit from its shelf, Lucky for you, humans have never been very good at accepting when someone says a situation is hopeless. He began pulling components from storage, his mind already racing through possible solutions. The other species might have advanced technology and elegant solutions, but humans had something else. The absolute refusal to let someone die on their watch when there was even the slightest chance of saving them. Kira watched in amazement as Marcus worked with frantic efficiency, his human hands somehow coaxing life back into systems that 3 different alien engineers had declared beyond repair. For the first time in months, she dared to hope that maybe, just maybe, she might live to see another sunrise. The temporary patches Marcus had installed bought them 6 hours, enough time for him to understand the true scope of Kira's deception and the magnitude of what he was facing. As he ran deeper scans on both the biosuit and its occupant, the picture that emerged made his blood run cold. Kira wasn't 16. The biosuit's age-masking protocols revealed she was actually 43 standard years old, middle-aged by Vellani standards. More shocking still, her body showed evidence of genetic manipulation, deliberate alterations that had saved her life as a child but doomed her to a slow, progressive breakdown as an adult. "You were born with Kelvian syndrome," Marcus said, reading from his scanner's display. "Fatal in 90% of cases, but someone modified your genetic structure to compensate." Kira nodded weakly from the medical cot he'd set up in his workshop. "My parents, they were brilliant bioengineers, but what they did was illegal. Genetic modification violates the principle of natural flow. When the authorities discovered what had been done to me, my parents were exiled. I was allowed to live, but with the understanding that when the modifications began to fail, I would accept renewal gracefully." "And instead you ran," Marcus said, not hiding his approval. "I wanted to see the galaxy first. Experience life beyond. Our homeworld, the biosuit helped me pass as young and healthy, let me work and travel and feel normal." Her voice broke. "But the modifications are breaking down faster now. My organs are failing one by one. Even if you repair the biosuit, it won't hold me together much longer." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, studying the scrolling data on his screens. Any rational being would see this as a lost cause. Kira's genetic structure was collapsing. At the cellular level, her biosuit was already running at maximum capacity just to keep her breathing. By all logical standards, she was already dead. The workshop door chimed, and Marcus looked up to see Dr. Neth, the station's chief medical officer. The Zaro's physician had clearly heard about their situation through the station's gossip network. "Kane," Neth said in his precise clinical tone, "I understand you're harboring a Vellani who should be undergoing renewal. This is neither ethical nor practical. The kindest thing you can do is help her contact her people and arrange for proper closure." "The kindest thing," Marcus replied, not looking away from his work, "would be to fix her and let her live her life." Neth's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep confusion among his species. "The modifications in her system are failing. Her genetic structure is fundamentally unstable. No technology in the galaxy can reverse that level of cellular breakdown." "Maybe not," Marcus said, pulling up a new set of schematics on his holographic display. "But I'm not trying to reverse it. I'm trying to work around it." Both Kira and Neth stared at the display in amazement. Marcus had somehow integrated human medical technology with Vellani bioengineering and Zaros synthetic organ systems, creating a hybrid design that none of them had ever seen before. "This is impossible," Neth breathed. "These technologies aren't compatible. The bioelectric signatures alone would create feedback loops that would kill the patient instantly." "That's what every expert said about human FTL drives too," Marcus replied, making adjustments to the design. "Right up until we started using them to explore half the galaxy." He turned to face both of them, and Kira was struck by the intensity in his brown eyes, a fierce determination that seemed to burn like a star's core. "Look, I don't pretend to understand your people's philosophy about renewal and cosmic flow and all that," Marcus continued. "But where I come from, we have a simple rule. As long as someone wants to live and we have the means to help them, we don't give up. We don't decide that someone's life isn't worth saving just because it's complicated or expensive or goes against tradition. Neth shook his head slowly. The arrogance of your species never ceases to amaze me. You think you can simply ignore the natural order of things. The natural order? Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. Doctor, humans weren't supposed to survive past our home planet. We weren't supposed to develop FTL travel, or establish colonies, or build stations like this one. According to the natural order, we should have died out millennia ago. But we're still here, and so is she. He gestured to Kira, who was listening to this exchange with growing wonder. In all her travels, she had never encountered a species that simply refused to accept defeat. The human's reputation for stubbornness was legendary, but she was beginning to understand it wasn't just stubbornness, it was something deeper. A fundamental belief that individual life had value, regardless of circumstances. The design might work, Neth admitted reluctantly, studying Marcus's schematics more closely. But it would require components from a dozen different worlds, and the integration process alone would take weeks. She doesn't have that much time. Marcus was already moving, pulling shipping manifests up on his secondary screens. Then we'd better get started. And Doctor, I hope you're not planning to report this to her people. Because if you are, you're going to find out just how stubborn humans can really get. The next morning brought unwelcome visitors to New Horizon Station. Marcus was deep in the delicate work of fabricating bio-neural interfaces when his workshop's proximity sensors detected a familiar energy signature, a Vellani diplomatic vessel, requesting docking clearance. They found me, Kira whispered, her face pale with terror. The temporary biosuit modifications Marcus had made were holding, but barely. Every few hours he had to recalibrate the system to compensate for her body's continued deterioration. Marcus didn't look up from his work. Maybe they're just passing through. But even as he said it, he knew better. Vellani ships rarely traveled this far into frontier space, and the formal diplomatic codes meant official business. Within the hour, his fears were confirmed when Commander Torres arrived with 2 Vellani officials in tow. Marcus Kane, announced the taller of the 2 Vellani, his biosuit gleaming with the expensive modifications that marked him as high-ranking. I am Councillor Vec of the Vellani Renewal Authority. We have come for the one you call Kira. She has a name, Marcus said, finally looking up from his work. And as far as I know, she's a free individual who can make her own choices. The second Vellani, a female with intricate biosuit patterns that suggested medical training, stepped forward. The individual designated Kira 779 is genetically compromised and has exceeded her permitted life extension. Vellani law requires her immediate return for renewal processing. Vellani law, Marcus repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. Not station law, not galactic law, just the law of a species that murders its own people when they become inconvenient. Commander. Torres winced. Marcus, please, let's keep this diplomatic. There's nothing diplomatic about what they're asking for, Marcus shot back. They want me to hand over someone who came to me for help so they can kill her. Where I come from, we call that accessory to murder. Councillor Vec's biosuit rippled with patterns that Marcus had learned indicated deep offense. You do not understand. Our way is human. The principle of natural flow teaches that all life must eventually return to the cosmic stream. To artificially extend existence beyond its natural limits creates imbalance, suffering, disorder. Kira's parents violated this principle when they modified her genetics. We have allowed her extra time to find peace, but that time has ended. Has anyone asked her what she wants? Marcus demanded. From her cot in the corner, Kira's voice was barely audible. I want to live. The medical officer's biosuit flashed with what Marcus recognized as pity. Child, your body is failing. The genetic modifications are breaking down at the cellular level. Even if this human could repair your biosuit, you would live in constant pain, requiring increasingly invasive interventions. Is such an existence truly living? That's not your choice to make, Marcus said, standing to his full height. At 6 feet, he towered over the slight Vellani officials. Maybe her life will be difficult. Maybe she'll need constant medical care. So what? Billions of humans live with chronic conditions, disabilities, genetic disorders. We don't kill them. We adapt. We innovate. We find ways to make life worth living. Commander Torres tried to intervene. The Villani have legal standing here. Kira is still technically a citizen of their world, subject to their laws. Then she renounces her citizenship, Marcus said immediately. New Horizon is a human station. We can grant her asylum under Galactic refugee protocols. Counselor Vex. Biosuit patterns shifted to what Marcus was learning to recognize as anger. You cannot simply ignore millennia of carefully maintained cultural balance for one individual. Watch me, Marcus replied. The standoff might have continued indefinitely, but it was interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Neth, accompanied by 3 other alien physicians who served on the station's medical board. The Zaro's doctor carried a data pad that he consulted with obvious reluctance. I have completed my analysis of Specialist Kane's proposed treatment plan, Neth announced. While highly unorthodox, the hybrid biosuit design shows a 73% probability of success in stabilizing the patient's condition. The Villani medical officer's biosuit flashed with disbelief. Impossible. Our own experts determined that her genetic breakdown was irreversible. Your experts, said Dr. Yex, a crystalline Thari physician, were working within the constraints of traditional Villani bioengineering. Human technology operates on different principles entirely. Where you see irreversible damage, they see engineering challenges to be overcome. Marcus felt a surge of gratitude toward his unlikely allies. The human approach isn't about accepting limitations, he explained to the assembled group. It's about finding ways around them. Kira's genetics are unstable? Fine, we'll build external systems to compensate. Her organs are failing. We'll supplement them with synthetic alternatives. Her bioelectric field is degrading. We'll boost her with human neural interfaces. But the complexity, Counselor Vec protested. Complexity is just another word for interesting problem, Marcus said with a grin. And humans love interesting problems. He turned back to his workbench, where the components for Kira's new biosuit were taking shape. It was unlike anything that had ever been built. A fusion of technologies from 4 different species, held together by human engineering principles and sheer stubbornness. The integration process will take 5 days, he announced. During that time, Kira remains under station protection as a refugee seeking asylum. After that, she'll be free to make her own choices about her life. As the Villani officials were escorted away by Commander Torres, still protesting, Kira looked at Marcus with wonder in her violet eyes. Why? She asked. Why are you doing this? For me? Your people barely know mine. We have no treaties, no shared history. What do you gain by saving me? Marcus paused in his work, considering the question seriously. Where I come from, he said finally, we have a saying, leave no one behind. It doesn't matter if you're human or alien, young or old, healthy or sick. If you want to live and we can help you live, then that's what we do. Not because we gain something from it, but because it's right. For the first time since arriving at the station, Kira smiled. The work consumed Marcus completely. For 4 straight days, he barely left his workshop, surviving on nutrition bars and recycled coffee, while he painstakingly integrated technologies that had never been designed to work together. The other aliens on the station watched his efforts with a mixture of fascination and bewilderment. He has been working for 96 hours with only brief rest periods, reported Dr. Neth to the station's senior staff. By all medical standards, he should have collapsed from exhaustion yesterday. Commander Torres nodded grimly. That's Marcus for you. Once he decides to fix something, he doesn't stop until it's done. She paused, studying the reports from the workshop. How's the patient? Stable, surprisingly. The temporary modifications Kane implemented are actually improving her condition slightly. I have never seen biosuit technology respond this way to human engineering principles. In the workshop, Marcus was discovering the same thing. Each system he modified seemed to work better than its original specifications suggested it should. The human neural interfaces didn't just boost Kira's degrading bioelectric field. They actually helped stabilize the chaotic patterns caused by her genetic breakdown. The synthetic organ components weren't just supplementing her failing biology, they were actively supporting the damaged tissue, giving it a chance to repair itself. I don't understand how this is working, Kira said, watching Marcus calibrate the biosuit's new neural network. Her color had improved dramatically over the past few days, and she was able to sit up without assistance for the first time in months. Neither do I completely, Marcus admitted. But sometimes that's how the best discoveries happen. You try something that shouldn't work, and it works anyway. They were interrupted by the arrival of an unexpected visitor, Elder Gem, one of the station's few permanent alien residents. The ancient Keth philosopher rarely left his meditation chambers, but he had hobbled down to see Marcus's work for himself. Fascinating, Elder Gem wheezed, his translator struggling with his archaic dialect. In 300 years of life, I have never witnessed such determined defiance of accepted limitations. Is that good or bad? Marcus asked, not pausing in his work. Among my people it would be considered dangerous madness, Elder Gem replied. We Keth believe in accepting the natural order, working within cosmic harmony. Your approach violates every principle of our philosophy. Marcus felt his heart sink. He had hoped for support from the station's elder statesman. However, Elder Gem continued, I have been watching the results of your madness. The young Villani grows stronger each day. Her bioelectric patterns are stabilizing in ways our medical texts say should be impossible. Perhaps there is wisdom in your human approach that we elder species have forgotten. What do you mean? Kira asked. Elder Gem settled his ancient frame into a chair, his movements careful and deliberate. When I was young, my people faced a similar crisis. A genetic plague threatened to destroy our entire species. Our wisest philosophers counseled acceptance, death with dignity rather than prolonged suffering. But a few young rebels refused to accept defeat. They experimented with forbidden technologies, violated sacred principles, ignored the warnings of their elders. What happened? Marcus asked, finally looking up from his work. They saved us all, Elder Gem said simply. The techniques they developed not only cured the plague, but advanced our medical knowledge by centuries. Yet even now we remember them as dangerous radicals who violated natural law. He gestured toward Marcus's workbench with one gnarled appendage. What you are doing here reminds me of those ancient rebels. Perhaps this is why humans have spread so quickly through the galaxy, despite being younger and weaker than most species. You refuse to accept that anything is impossible. Over the following day, word of Elder Gem's endorsement spread throughout the station. Other aliens began visiting the workshop, not to criticize Marcus's work, but to understand it. Dr. Yex brought crystalline computing matrices that could process bioelectric patterns faster than any organic system. Engineer Wool contributed microfabrication techniques that allowed Marcus to build components at the cellular level. This is unprecedented, observed Dr. Neth, as he watched the various species working together. I have never seen such cooperation on a project that violates so many established medical principles. Maybe that's the point, suggested Commander Torres. Maybe we've all gotten too comfortable with our established principles. Meanwhile, the Villani diplomatic vessel remained docked at the station, its crew growing increasingly agitated as the deadline for Kira's renewal approached. Councillor Vec made daily visits to the medical bay, each time more insistent than the last. You are corrupting the natural order, he warned Marcus during his latest visit. This obsession with extending life beyond its proper limits will bring only suffering. Whose suffering? Marcus asked, not looking up from the delicate neural interface he was installing. Kira's getting stronger every day. Her pain levels are dropping. Her cognitive function is improving. If anyone's suffering here, it's you, because you can't accept that your people might be wrong about something. Impossible, Councillor Vec declared. The Villani have maintained cultural stability for over 10,000 years. Our renewal system ensures that no individual becomes a burden on society, that resources are not wasted on those who cannot contribute. And what has that stability cost you? Marcus asked, finally turning to face the councillor. How many brilliant minds have you nude before they could make their greatest contributions? How many artists, inventors, philosophers have you lost because they got sick at the wrong time? For the first time, Marcus saw uncertainty flicker across Councillor Vec's biosuit patterns. That is not how renewal works. We only process those who are truly beyond help. Like Kira. Marcus gestured to where she sat working alongside Dr. Yex, her movements fluid and confident for the first time since arriving at the station. Because she seems pretty far from beyond help. Timmy? The counselor stared at Kira in obvious shock. Her transformation over the past 5 days was undeniable, from a dying refugee to a vibrant individual who was not only surviving, but actively contributing to her own treatment. This should not be possible, he whispered. That's what makes it interesting, Marcus replied, turning back to his work. Humans specialize in making impossible things possible. It's what we do. On the 6th day, Marcus stepped back from his workbench and allowed himself a small smile of satisfaction. The hybrid biosuit before him looked like nothing that had ever existed, a seamless fusion of organic Vellani technology, crystalline Thari processors, synthetic Zaros organs, and human neural interfaces, all held together by principles that probably violated half the engineering textbooks in the galaxy. It's beautiful, Kira breathed, running her fingers along the suit's bioluminescent panels. The new design was sleeker than traditional Vellani biosuits, with flowing lines that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. More importantly, it should work, Marcus said, consulting his test results. One final time, the human neural interfaces will provide stability for your degrading bioelectric field. The Thari processors can compensate for your genetic inconsistencies in real time. The synthetic organs will supplement your failing biology without triggering rejection responses. Dr. Neth finished his own analysis and nodded approvingly. The integration is remarkable. I estimate this system could provide stable life support for decades, possibly centuries with regular maintenance. Centuries? Kira's eyes widened. Among the Vellani, even healthy individuals rarely lived beyond 150 years. Beauty of hybrid systems, Marcus explained, helping her into the new biosuit. When one component starts to fail, we can replace or upgrade it without affecting the others. Your biology sets the baseline, but the technology extends it indefinitely. As the biosuit activated, its various systems coming online in sequence, Kira gasped. The constant background pain that had plagued her for years simply disappeared. Her vision became clearer, her breathing easier, her thoughts sharper. For the first time in decades, she felt truly alive. How do you feel? Marcus asked, monitoring the suit's readouts carefully. Like I could run to the observation deck and back. Kira laughed, then paused. Actually, can I? I haven't been able to run since I was a child. Take it easy at first, Marcus cautioned, but he was grinning. The system needs time to fully integrate with your biology. But yes, you should be able to do things you haven't done in years. Word of the successful. Integration spread quickly through the station. Within hours, Marcus's workshop was filled with curious observers from a dozen different species, all marveling at what they witnessed. Kira moved with grace and energy that would have been remarkable in a healthy Vellani, let alone one who had been dying 6 days earlier. This changes everything, Elder Gem observed, studying the biosuit's readouts with obvious fascination. If human engineering can overcome genetic limitations this severe, what other impossible problems might have solutions? The question hung heavy in the air. Every species present had their own medical mysteries, their own supposedly incurable conditions, their own individuals who had been written off as beyond help. The implications are staggering, admitted Dr. Yex, her crystalline form humming with excitement. Among the Thari, we have 17 different hereditary conditions that we simply accept as part of our genetic legacy. If human methods could address even one of them. The Zaro's reproductive crisis, added Dr. Neth quietly. Our birth rates have been declining for centuries due to genetic incompatibilities. Traditional medicine has reached its limits, but perhaps human innovation. Marcus held up his hands, suddenly feeling overwhelmed by the expectations surrounding him. Look, I'm just one engineer on one station. What we did here was experimental, dangerous, and honestly kind of insane. I can't promise that human methods will work for every problem. But you can promise that humans will try, said a new voice. From the workshop's entrance, everyone turned to see Captain Liu of the merchant vessel Perseverance, along with 3 other human crew members. Word of Marcus's achievement had reached the human community throughout the sector, and they had come to see it for themselves. "That's what we do," Captain Liu continued, studying Kira with obvious pride. "When everyone else says something's impossible, humans say, 'Challenge accepted.' It's gotten us into trouble more times than I can count, but it's also taken us further than anyone thought we could go." Councillor Vec chose that moment to make his final appearance, accompanied by 2 security officers and what appeared to be legal documentation. His biosuit patterns radiated official authority as he addressed the assembled crowd. "This experiment has gone on long enough," he announced. "Kira 779 remains a citizen of the Villani Republic, subject to our laws and customs. She will return with us immediately for proper renewal processing." The workshop fell silent. Everyone looked to Marcus, waiting to see how he would respond to this ultimate challenge. Marcus stepped forward, placing himself protectively between the Villani officials and Kira. "Over my dead body." "That can be arranged," one of the security officers said ominously. "Can it?" Captain Liu stepped up beside Marcus, followed by her crew. "Because I count 4 humans just in this room, and we're all really curious to see you try." Elder Jem rose slowly from his chair. The Keth do not typically involve themselves in political disputes. However, in this case, we support the human position. The young Villani has been transformed from a dying refugee into a vital individual. To destroy such a miracle would be wasteful. Dr. Yex's crystalline form chimed with harmonious agreement. "Thirthari concur. Our technology contributed to this success. We have a vested interest in protecting the result." One by one, every alien in the workshop voiced their support for Kira's right to choose her own fate. The Villani officials found themselves facing not just human stubbornness, but a united front of species who had been inspired by human determination to challenge their own assumptions about what was possible. Councillor Vec's biosuit patterns cycled through confusion, anger, and finally resignation. "This is highly irregular. Such cooperation between species on a single individual's behalf is unprecedented." "Get used to it," Marcus said firmly, "because this is just the beginning. Humans don't just refuse to give up on people. We make everyone around us refuse to give up too. It tends to be contagious." The standoff in Marcus's workshop had attracted the attention of the entire station. Commander Torres arrived with a full security detail, while the corridors outside filled with curious residents from dozens of different species. Word was spreading. Through the Galactic communication networks, the frontier station where humans had supposedly achieved the impossible, where traditional boundaries between life and death had been challenged and overcome. Councillor Vec found himself facing not just Marcus and his human supporters, but representatives from every major species on the station. The unified opposition to Villani authority was unprecedented in galactic politics. "You cannot simply ignore established law," Vec insisted, his biosuit patterns cycling through increasingly agitated configurations. "The Villani Renewal Authority has legal jurisdiction over all citizens of our republic, regardless of their location." "Actually," Commander Torres said, consulting her legal pad, "that's not entirely accurate. Galactic refugee law supersedes local citizenship claims when an individual's life is threatened by their home government's policies." "Kira is not a refugee," Vec protested. "She is a citizen in need of medical closure." "Medical closure?" Marcus's voice was dangerously quiet. "Is that what you're calling murder now?" The Villani councillors' security officers tensed, hands moving toward their weapons. But they found themselves facing not just humans, but a room full of aliens who had clearly chosen sides. Dr. Yex's crystalline form had taken on a defensive configuration that could generate paralyzing sound waves. Elder Jem might be ancient, but his species possessed telekinetic abilities that could crush armor. Even Dr. Neath had produced a medical scanner that could be reconfigured as a neural disruptor. "This is madness," one of the security officers muttered. "An entire station ready to fight over one damaged individual?" "She's not damaged anymore," Kira said quietly, stepping out from behind Marcus. The new biosuit made her appear taller, stronger, more vibrant than any Villani the officers had ever seen. I'm not the dying child you came to collect. I'm something new. She walked to the workshop's main display, which still showed the readouts from her biosuit systems. For 3 days now, I've been stable. No pain, no deterioration, no system failures. The human modifications aren't just keeping me alive. They're making me better than I ever was. Councillor Vex stared at the readings in obvious disbelief. This is impossible. How medical experts confirmed that your genetic breakdown was irreversible? Your medical experts, Marcus said, were thinking inside the box. Humans don't have a box. But the cost! Vex's biosuit flashed with desperation. The resources required. To maintain such systems, the complexity of ongoing care. No society can sustain such expenditure for individual preservation. Watch us, Captain Liu said simply. The human merchant fleet alone has 17 ships in this sector. Every one of them carries biosuit maintenance equipment and trained technicians. Kira could travel anywhere in human space and receive full support. The Thari research colonies would welcome her as well, added Dr. Yex. Her unique bioelectric patterns could provide valuable data for our genetic research. She would be an honored guest, not a burden. The Keth meditation centers have facilities for individuals with complex medical needs, Elder Jem added with quiet dignity. We would consider it an honor to provide sanctuary for one who has transcended her original limitations. The list of offers continued, each species on the station volunteering resources, expertise, or sanctuary. What had begun as a simple medical repair had transformed into something unprecedented, a galactic community united in defense of a single individual's right to live. Councillor Vex's biosuit patterns shifted to what Marcus recognized as deep confusion. Why? She is not of your species. She contributes nothing to your societies. Why would you expend such resources on a single alien life? Because that's what civilized beings do, Marcus replied. We help each other. We don't abandon people just because it's inconvenient or expensive or goes against tradition. But the natural order, Elder Jem interrupted, is what brought us all together on this station. Humans, Vellani, Thari, Keth, Zaros, we are all part of the same cosmic web. When we help one, we strengthen all. Commander, Torres stepped forward with an official datapad. I've been in communication with Galactic Council representatives. Given the unprecedented nature of this situation and the clear evidence of Kira's transformation, they're prepared to grant her full refugee status with protected citizenship rights. Furthermore, she continued, the Council has expressed interest in establishing a joint research initiative to study human integration techniques. Multiple species have requested access to these new biosuit technologies. Councillor Vex's security officers exchanged glances. The situation had clearly spiraled far beyond their ability to control. What should have been a simple extradition had become a galactic incident with political ramifications that reached the highest levels of interspecies government. This is not over, Vex declared, his biosuit's patterns radiating frustrated authority. The Vellani Republic will not accept this precedent. We cannot allow our citizens to simply abandon their responsibilities to society. Responsibilities? Kira's voice carried a strength that surprised everyone, including herself. What responsibility do I have to die for your convenience? What did I ever owe you except my life? She stepped closer to the Vellani officials, her new biosuit making her appear almost luminous in the workshop's lighting. I've spent 43 years believing I was broken, defective, living on borrowed time. But these humans showed me something different. They showed me that being damaged doesn't make you worthless, that needing help doesn't make you a burden, that wanting to live isn't selfish, it's the most natural thing in the universe. You speak of natural, she continued, her voice growing stronger with each word. What's natural about killing your own people when they become inconvenient? What's natural about deciding that some lives matter more than others? The humans may be young and stubborn and reckless, but at least they value life. All life, not just the perfect specimens. The workshop fell silent. Even the Vellani officials seemed stunned by this transformation, not just of Kira's body, but of her spirit. The frightened, dying refugee who had stumbled into Marcus's shop 6 days ago was gone. In her place stood someone confident, determined, and utterly unafraid. The Villani Republic has stood for 10,000 years on principles of order, balance, and acceptance of natural limits, Councillor Vex said finally. You would destroy all of that for one individual's selfish desires? No, Marcus said quietly. We'd improve it, because any society that considers individual lives disposable isn't worth preserving. The Villani officials left without another word, their security escort trailing behind them. But Marcus knew this wasn't truly over. The implications of what they had accomplished here would ripple through galactic society for generations. They had proven that human methods could overcome supposedly insurmountable limitations, that cooperation between species could achieve what none could accomplish alone, and that the value of individual life transcended cultural boundaries. As the crowd in his workshop began to disperse, Marcus found himself alone with Kira for the first time since the crisis began. She was staring at her reflection in the workshop's polished surfaces, marveling at her transformation. What happens now? She asked. Marcus considered the question carefully. Now you live, however you want, wherever you want, for as long as you want. That's what we fought for, your right to choose your own path. And if my people come back, if they try to force me to return. Marcus smiled, the same fierce determination that had driven him through 6 days of impossible engineering burning in his eyes. Then they'll discover what happens when you threaten someone under human protection. We're not very good at backing down from fights, especially when they're fights worth having. Kira looked around the workshop, at the evidence of human ingenuity and alien cooperation that had saved her life. I think I'd like to stay here, if that's possible. Help you with your work. Maybe we can save others the way you saved me. I'd like that, Marcus replied. The galaxy's full of supposedly impossible problems. We'll need all the help we can get. 3 months after Kira's transformation, New Horizons Station had become something unprecedented in galactic history, a medical research center where human ingenuity combined with alien expertise to tackle the impossible. The small frontier outpost now hosted representatives from 17 different species, all seeking solutions to their own incurable conditions. Marcus found himself leading a team of specialists from across known space. Their workshop expanded into an entire medical complex. The hybrid biosuit design that had saved Kira's life had evolved into a platform technology with applications none of them had originally imagined. The Andromedan genetic plague, Dr. Yex announced during their morning briefing, her crystalline form humming with excitement. We've achieved a 68% remission rate using modified human neural interfaces. The Zaro's reproductive crisis shows even better results, added Dr. Neth. The hybrid fertility treatments have resulted in 17 successful pregnancies in the past month alone. Marcus nodded approvingly as he reviewed the data streams flowing across his displays. Each success, built on the principles they had established with Kira, refused to accept limitations, combine technologies in unprecedented ways, and never give up on someone who wanted to live. What about the Keth memory degradation syndrome? He asked. Elder Gem, now a permanent resident of the station, spoke with renewed vitality. Remarkable progress. The human cognitive enhancement protocols have not only halted the deterioration, but actually restored memories we thought were permanently lost. My people are calling it the Second Awakening. The success stories continued, each one representing lives saved and futures restored. But Marcus knew their work had implications far beyond individual medical cases. They were proving that the boundaries between species, between possible and impossible, were far more flexible than anyone had imagined. Kira entered the briefing room, moving with the fluid grace that still amazed everyone who had known her before her transformation. Her biosuit had continued to evolve, incorporating new technologies and capabilities as they developed them. She was no longer just a patient, she had become a partner in their research, her unique hybrid biology providing insights that purely biological or technological approaches could never achieve. The Galactic Council delegation has arrived, she announced. They're requesting a full briefing on our methodologies. Marcus felt a familiar tension in his chest. 3 months of success had attracted attention from the highest levels of galactic government. Some of that attention was positive: funding, resources, official recognition, but some of it was decidedly hostile, particularly from species whose traditional medical philosophies were being challenged by human methods. "Any word from the Villani Republic?" Marcus asked. Kira's expression darkened slightly. Councillor Vec is leading the delegation, along with representatives from 6 other conservative species. They're calling for formal restrictions on what they term reckless life extension technologies. "Of course they are," Marcus muttered. "Can't have people living when they're supposed to die. Might upset the natural order." Commander Torres entered the briefing room, her expression grim. "The political situation is getting complicated. Half the galaxy sees what we're doing as miraculous. The other half sees it as dangerous precedent that threatens social stability. The Council is under pressure to regulate our research." "Regulate? How?" Dr. Yex asked, her crystalline form taking on defensive harmonics. "Restrictions on which species can receive treatment, limits on the types of conditions we can address, mandatory approval processes that could take years for each individual case." Torres shook her head. "Basically, they want to turn this into a traditional medical facility with traditional limitations." Marcus felt the familiar fire building in his chest, the same stubborn determination that had driven humans to spread across the galaxy, despite being told they were too primitive, too weak, too reckless to survive among the stars. "They can try," he said quietly. "But they're going to discover that humans don't compromise very well when lives are at stake. The Council has significant authority," Torres warned. "They could shut us down entirely if they choose to." "Then we'll move operations," Kira said, firmly. "The merchant fleet has offered mobile research platforms. The Thari colonies have provided sanctuary guarantees. We don't need official approval to save lives." "It won't be that simple," Elder Jem cautioned. "The Conservative Alliance has resources and influence that reach throughout known space. They see what we represent as an existential threat to their traditional ways." Marcus looked around the room at the assembled team, humans, Thari, Keth, Zaros, and others, all united in their commitment to pushing the boundaries of what was possible. They had already achieved more in 3 months than traditional medicine had accomplished in centuries. They had proven that cooperation between species could overcome limitations that had seemed absolute. "Then we make our case directly," Marcus decided. "Show them what we've accomplished. Let them see the people we've saved, the lives we've restored, the futures we've created. Sometimes the best argument is simply the results." Over the following week, the station hosted the largest gathering of galactic dignitaries in its history. Representatives from 47 different species arrived to witness demonstrations of the hybrid technologies and meet the individuals whose lives had been transformed. The presentations were powerful. Kira herself served as the primary example, her transformation from dying refugee to vibrant researcher, providing undeniable evidence of what was possible. But she was no longer alone. Dozens of other success stories walked the station's corridors, living proof that supposed limitations could be overcome. The Andromedan, who had been freed from a genetic plague that had killed millions of his people. The Zaros couple holding their first child after decades of failed attempts to reproduce. The elderly Keth philosopher, whose memories had been restored after years of progressive deterioration. Each story was a victory against the supposed natural order, a testament to the power of refusing to accept defeat. But the opposition came prepared as well. Councillor Vec led a coalition of representatives who argued passionately about the dangers of uncontrolled life extension, the social disruption caused by individuals refusing to accept their natural limitations, the resource drain of supporting people who should have accepted graceful endings to their lives. "You speak of miracles," Vec declared during the formal debate session, "but what you have created is chaos. Individuals living far beyond their intended lifespans, consuming resources that should support the young and healthy, disrupting the careful balance that has maintained social stability for millennia." "Balance?" Marcus rose to respond, his voice carrying the weight of everything they had accomplished. "You call it balance to decide that some lives are worth less than others, to give up on people just because helping them is difficult or expensive or inconvenient?" He gestured to the assembled gallery. where dozens of their success stories sat alongside representatives from across the galaxy. Every person in this room was written off by traditional medicine. Every one of them was told to accept their fate, to die with dignity, to stop fighting for their lives. And every one of them is alive today because we refuse to accept those limitations. The resources, Vec began. Are abundant, interrupted Captain Liu, speaking for the human merchant fleet. Humans alone have committed to supporting this research indefinitely. Add the Thari scientific communities, the Keth philosophical centers, the Zaros medical guilds, and a dozen other species, and we have more resources than we know what to do with. But why? Asked Representative Moll of the Graythan Empire. Why would so many species commit such resources to preserve individual lives that would naturally end? The question hung in the air for a moment before Elder Gem rose to respond. His ancient voice carried the wisdom of 3 centuries, but also the vitality that human treatments had restored to his failing mind. Because, he said simply, every life contains infinite potential. Every individual carries within them the possibility of discoveries, creations, connections that could benefit all of us. When we decide that someone has lived long enough, when we choose to end a life before its natural conclusion, we don't just lose that individual. We lose everything they might have contributed to the universe. He gestured to Kira, who stood at the front of the gallery. This young Villani was deemed worthless by her own people, a burden to be discarded. But in the past 3 months, her unique biology has provided insights that have saved hundreds of lives across a dozen species. How many other valuable individuals have we lost to premature renewal? How many potential solutions to galactic problems have we discarded because we were too comfortable with our limitations? The debate continued for days, but Marcus could see the tide turning. The evidence was simply too overwhelming, the success stories too compelling, the promise of what they could accomplish too great to ignore. Species after species stepped forward to pledge support for the research, to offer resources and expertise, to commit to a new approach that valued individual life above social convenience. In the end, the Galactic Council reached a compromise that satisfied no one completely, but allowed the work to continue. New Horizons Station would become an official Galactic Medical Research Center, with funding and resources provided by the member species. The hybrid technologies would be made available to any individual who requested them, regardless of their species' traditional medical philosophies. There would be oversight, regulations, and bureaucratic complications that would make the work more difficult. But the core principle had been established. No individual would be forced to accept death if alternatives existed, and no species would be prevented from seeking those alternatives. As the dignitaries departed, and the station settled back into its new routine, Marcus found himself on the observation deck with Kira, watching the stars wheel slowly past. The view was the same as it had been 6 months ago, but everything else had changed. "Any regrets?" Kira asked. Marcus considered the question seriously. Their lives had become infinitely more complicated. They faced political opposition, resource, challenges, and the constant pressure of expectations from across the galaxy. The simple days of repairing biosuits for frontier traders were gone forever. "None," he said finally. "We've proven that humans can make a difference out here, that our approach to problems, our refusal to accept limitations, our willingness to try impossible things, has value beyond just getting us to the stars." "And what's next?" Kira asked. Marcus smiled. The same fierce determination that had driven him to save one dying alien girl now focused on challenges that spanned the galaxy. "Next, we keep doing what humans do best. We find impossible problems and solve them anyway. We help people who everyone else has given up on. We prove that individual lives matter, regardless of species or circumstances." He gestured toward E, the communications array that connected New Horizons Station to the rest of the galaxy. "Out there right now, there are people who need our help. Individuals that their societies have written off, conditions that traditional medicine considers incurable, limitations that everyone accepts as absolute. And we're going to prove them all wrong." Kira nodded, her biosuit's patterns pulsing with anticipation. "Where do we start?" "With the next person who walks through our door asking for help," Marcus replied. Because that's what humans do. We help. One person at a time, one impossible problem at a time, until there are no more. People left to save. As they stood together on the observation deck, Human and Villani united in purpose. The stars seemed to shine a little brighter. The galaxy was vast and full of challenges, but they had something that no amount of traditional wisdom or established limitations could overcome: the absolute human refusal to give up on anyone who wanted to live. The future stretched before them, bright with possibility and promise. And somewhere among those distant stars, others waited who would discover what Kira had learned in Marcus's workshop 6 months ago: that sometimes the most important word in any language is impossible, because it marks the exact spot where humans get interested in solving problems.